Like and subscribe to my channel so you never miss such important and shocking stories from aviation history. Today, we take you into the story of such a tragic incident that shook not only Thailand, but also the entire aviation world. This is the heartbreaking story of Thai Airways Flight 261, a flight that turned into a nightmare on 11th of December, 1998. In this video, we will explore why and how this incident happened, what effect it had on the lives of 146 people, and what lesson the aviation industry learned from it. So, without delay, let's begin. Thai Airways Flight 261 was supposed to be a simple domestic flight. Nothing unusual, just like hundreds of flights operating in Thailand every day. It was scheduled to travel from Bangkok's Don Muang Airport to Surat Thani Airport. The airline operating the flight was Thai Airways, Thailand's flag carrier and one of Asia's leading airlines at the time. The aircraft used was an Airbus A310-204, with the registration HSTIA, a plane that had flown for years without major trouble. On board that day were 146 people, including 132 passengers and 14 crew members. Of the passengers, 25 were foreigners from different parts of the world, including Australia, Japan, Germany, the United Kingdom, and the United States. Many of them were tourists headed for holidays in southern Thailand, particularly the famous island of Koh Samui, known for its tropical beaches and resorts. Some passengers were locals, returning home or traveling for work. The crew was experienced, with Captain Pracha Bulsuk, a senior pilot with thousands of hours of flying experience, in command. At 5:54 p.m. on 11th December 1998, the Airbus A310 took off from Don Muang Airport in Bangkok. The weather in Bangkok was relatively clear, and the flight climbed to its cruising altitude of 31,000 feet. The expected travel time was just under 2 hours. For most of the journey, everything seemed normal. Passengers were served refreshments, children were playing with toys, and tourists were excited about reaching their holiday destination. Nobody could imagine the tragedy that awaited them, but as the plane approached Surat Thani, conditions began to change dramatically. A tropical storm named Jill had been lashing southern Thailand with heavy rain and strong winds. Visibility at Surat Thani Airport was severely reduced, down to just 1,000 to 1,500 meters. To make matters worse, some of the approach lighting systems at the airport were not fully operational. Specifically, the Precision Approach Path Indicator, PAPI, lights on the right side of runway 22 were not working, leaving only the left side lights available. This made landing in poor visibility even more challenging. At around 6:42 p.m., as the plane descended towards Surat Thani, the crew attempted their first landing. The co-pilot communicated with air traffic control, and the controller warned them that the runway was wet and slippery due to the ongoing rain. The pilots aligned with the runway, but as they approached, the runway lights faded in and out of sight because of the rain and clouds. The captain decided that conditions were too dangerous and executed a go-around, pulling the plane back into the sky. The passengers inside must have felt the sudden thrust of engines as the plane climbed steeply again. Some may have felt nervous. Others reassured themselves that it was a normal procedure. After all, go-arounds are common in aviation when the approach is unsafe. But the worsening weather made the situation tense. The second attempt at landing was no better. The pilots tried again, struggling against the turbulence, heavy rain, and poor visibility. Once again, the runway was barely visible, and the plane could not be safely aligned. The captain aborted the landing a second time, circling the airport again. Inside the cabin, passengers were now increasingly uneasy. They had been circling for nearly an hour. The rain battered the windows, lightning flashed in the distance, and the plane rocked from side to side in the storm. By the third attempt, the situation was critical. The pilots were under immense pressure, fatigue, stress, and the fear of running. Low on fuel added to the difficulty. The Airbus A310 descended once more, the crew straining their eyes to spot the runway lights through sheets of rain. But once again, visibility was nearly zero. The captain disengaged the autopilot and attempted to climb again. This is when tragedy struck. During the go-around, the nose of the aircraft pitched up excessively, reaching an angle of 40 to 58 degrees, far too steep for safe flight. The speed of the plane dropped dangerously, and the aircraft entered what is called a stall. In aviation, a stall means the wings are no longer generating enough lift to keep the plane in the air. With the engines screaming and alarms sounding in the cockpit, the A310 began to fall uncontrollably from the sky. At 7:05 p.m., just 3 kilometers from Surat Thani Airport, Flight 261 crashed into a muddy field surrounded by rubber trees. The tail of the aircraft clipped parts of an airport control tower structure before the entire plane broke apart on impact. The force of the crash was devastating. Fire erupted in parts of the wreckage, though heavy rain prevented it from engulfing the entire aircraft. Of the 146 people on board, 101 lost their lives, including all 3 pilots. Many died instantly from the impact. Others were trapped in the wreckage. Miraculously, 45 people survived, but almost all of them were seriously injured. Survivors later described the horror: the sound of metal tearing apart, luggage flying everywhere, the smell of fuel, and the desperate struggle to escape from twisted debris in the dark, muddy field. The rescue operation began immediately. Local villagers rushed to the site, joined by police, soldiers, and volunteers. They pulled survivors from the wreckage and carried bodies to the airport for identification. But the handling of victims sparked criticism. Bodies of the deceased were laid out openly at the airport terminal, where family members and arriving passengers had to witness the heartbreaking scene. Survivors were rushed to hospitals in Surat Thani, but many faced long recoveries from burns, fractures, and psychological trauma. This crash was one of the deadliest in Thailand's aviation history, second only to the Lauda Air Flight 4 disaster of 1991. The Thai public was shocked. Internationally, aviation experts demanded answers. How could such a modern aircraft crash during a routine domestic flight? The investigation that followed revealed several critical factors. The primary cause was pilot error during the third go-around. The excessive nose-up pitch, combined with the disengagement of autopilot and poor weather conditions, led to the stall. Investigators also found that stress and fatigue impaired the pilot's judgment. Moreover, the lack of functional PAPI lights on one side of the runway added to the difficulty. The weather was another crucial factor. Tropical storm Jill created near-impossible landing conditions. In such cases, many experts argued, the flight should have diverted to another airport with better weather, such as Phuket or Hat Yai. But pressure to land at Surat Thani, perhaps because of fuel concerns or scheduling, may have influenced the decision. Thai Airways and aviation authorities faced criticism for not improving the infrastructure of Surat Thani Airport, particularly its landing systems. The incident highlighted the importance of proper go-around training, decision-making under pressure, and strict rules for diversions during severe weather. The aftermath was heartbreaking for families. Relatives of victims demanded answers and accountability. Survivors carried scars, both physical and emotional, for years. Some never returned to flying again. For Thai Airways, the crash was a major blow to its reputation. The airline worked to rebuild public trust by improving safety standards, pilot training, and equipment maintenance. But beyond blame and criticism, the tragedy also left behind important lessons for aviation worldwide. The need for strict adherence to diversion protocols in bad weather, the importance of ensuring all airport landing aids are functional, the need for better crew resource management and stress handling, and the reminder that even routine domestic flights can turn deadly if safety margins are ignored. Today, when we look back at Thai Airways Flight 261, We remember the 101 lives lost, people who had dreams, families, and futures ahead of them. We also remember the survivors, who endured unimaginable pain but lived to tell their stories. And we acknowledge the lessons that continue to make aviation safer for all of us. This was the story of Thai Airways Flight 261, a flight that should have been just another routine journey, but instead became one of Thailand's darkest aviation tragedies. If you found this story informative and important, please share this video and subscribe to my channel. Your support helps us bring more real-life stories from aviation history, stories that teach us about the value of safety, human, decision-making, and resilience. Thank you for watching.